All right, welcome to Crushing Brevard. If you hadn't seen episode 1, you may not know the gentleman on camera here, but it's Mr. Chris Spears, our producer and co-host, and we're just going to kind of do this episode talking to him because he's an interesting dude with interesting ideas. And Chris, why don't you give a little background on your life and times and where you come from? I know we heard all about that St. Louis crap, so we probably don't need to delve into too much more of the geography of St. Louis and the blues and all that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. You do what you want to do.
Lauren Carpenter. Covered that ad nauseum. But I'll preface two things. I'm currently writing a book, so I've got some notes kind of like out of the manuscript. So I'm just going to kind of freestyle. I know my story pretty well, but when you get in that process of writing an autobiography, you're going to kind of like uncover and remember some like interesting aspects that were 25 years ago that you just completely forgot about.
Sure.
I'm like, well, I'm not going to omit those. That's the overarching part of my story.
Sure.
And, another part I think about the kind of like the climate growing up in Missouri as a little kid in like the 80s and 90s. There's a lot of kind of uglier aspects, but I'm going to touch on that briefly just to set the tone, so to speak.
Okay.
So yeah, that being said about my hometown and kind of growing up and kind of experiencing it, my takeaway is I would never choose to live there again or really anywhere in the South except Florida. Okay. I think once you get down south of Orlando, it just becomes more of a beachy vibe, Alabama vibe.
Yeah, I don't think Florida is what people think of as the South. Yeah. So I don't, it's
like
its
Texas.
It's its own thing.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
Like Oklahoma is just Kansas trying to be Texas. It has like an identity crisis. But growing up, my parents were awesome. They afforded me every opportunity to go to private school and take music lessons from probably age 5 till about high school age.
Okay, what instruments are we talking about?
My mom is a classical pianist. She's retired. She's 80. Developed carpal tunnel.
Oh,
she's been retired some time ago, but she made it to almost 50.
Okay.
Still playing at a high level, and being a drummer myself, it's you can imagine how after repetitive use, 30 years of doing something, it's going to break down.
Just so much of her identity must have been around music, and then she can't do it anymore at the level that she feels like she should be at.
It was.
That's got to be tough.
I felt bad for her because, I remember like summertime, she would practice 8 a.m. till noon. Yeah. And I would practice noon to 4.
Okay.
So to be raised in a household where you're gently awoken by like world-class piano coming up the stairs.
Yeah.
Hotels pay guys a lot of money to do
exactly.
that. I had it free at the house. So,
exactly.
So that was really neat. And my mom sparked my brother and I's passion for motorcycles. So
your mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sidebar, I'm going to go back to when my mom was in college. My dad, he's a tree like you. He's about 6'6". And they're at Ohio State. He's from Lima, Ohio. She's from Mason, Ohio. Okay. Mason's a now affluent suburb of Cincinnati, about 30 miles out. And when I was growing up, it was cornfields, and I hated showering there because you smelled like farts, like well water, sulfur. It was pretty gross. Okay. So, now that land's, Joe Burrow, unless he lives in a high-rise in downtown Cincinnati, if they've built one yet, probably lives out in the suburbs because that's where the guys, once you get your contract. Yeah. Zero crime. They built a huge hospital, so now there's sushi and Whole Foods and all the things that were just dirt.
And you get 10 acres and
exactly.
And
you want a little space. You're not butted up against another $3 million home. Like everybody gets an acre. Yeah. So I've yet to go back. Cincinnati was really the Midwestern and kind of southern towns were never my vacation destination. Right. Like when I was old enough to start flying places on myself and affording vacations, I'd go out to Vegas. I'd go out to LA. I love Chicago. I've taken the Amtrak to Chicago. Okay. Probably 50 times.
Okay. Yeah.
Cubs games,
Station
Blackhawk
downtown.
games. Yeah. You don't need a car in Chicago. It's like a liability.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I think the round trip on the train back in the late 90s, early 2000s was $38.
Oh, wow.
And lets you out at Union Station from St. Louis. Yeah. And it's essentially a bar car on wheels. Because you're picking up kids from all the college towns on the way up for the weekend.
All right, yeah.
So you're just playing cards and drinking beer in the bar car, and it's like,
Yeah.
And you could BYOB on there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, legally or
They didn't care.
back in the day? All right.
You know, it was kind of one of those deals.
yeah.
I'd buy one from the bartender.
Yeah.
And then just keep drinking the same beer, but I'd tip him like $10.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, you tip on the Amtrak?" And it's just, but you know, you pick up your own mess.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
pound your 6-pack on the way. Nobody cares.
Don't become a problem. Don't draw attention to yourself,
Yeah.
and you can get away with some stuff. Yeah,
Don't get thrown off the train.
Exactly.
Which I did once.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was right when cell phones came out.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like chill and read a book.
Yeah.
And there's like a lady with that kind of New Jersey vibe, like back when cell phones were starting to get more prominent. Mm-hmm. I'm on a cell phone. Like just.
Yeah.
And I'm like, miss.
Yeah.
I'm on a book.
Dial it down. Right, dial it down.
Like nobody can hear because everybody's just kind of staring. I was like, okay, I'll be the guy.
Yeah.
You know.
They threw you off?
Oh, she got all hood and ridiculous
Yeah.
and accused me of things that weren't happening.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to go, sir. So they dropped me off in Peoria, and the next train was at. That was the PM train that left at 3:30 p.m. from St. Louis.
Okay.
Next train was 9 in the morning.
Oh boy.
So it came out of pocket for a room just because I spoke up about a person annoying the whole train car.
My wife said she has family that lives in the Philadelphia area, so right across the river from New Jersey, and we would go there and we would be talking to people, and I'd pull her aside. I'm like, why is everybody so angry? And they're like, what? No, they're not angry. I'm like, they're screaming at each other. I'm like, that's how they talk.
No, it's just the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, but no,
they throw batteries at you in the outfield when
love.
you got traded inadvertently.
That's love.
Traitor. Right? It's like, no, got traded.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I didn't have a vote in this one, right?
Yeah.
So. Anyway, all right. So thrown off a train, but you went to Chicago for some stuff that Chicago has, right? Yeah,
it's just a cool, bigger city than St. Louis with a different vibe. But you go to a Cubs game, it's an all-day event. With Wrigleyville, 100 bars. Like, you just make a day out of that.
Yep.
And Chicago in the summer, man, along the lake, people playing volleyball and like street hockey and just chilling on the beach. And the museums. Science and Industry.
And the bars
Chicago
are cool.
Art Museum.
There's every corner's got two, and
they close at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And there's an L train right there. So Uber won't have existed for another 20 years. So it's like, you get around on the train.
Oh yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So one of my favorite cities. I prefer Chicago to New York.
Okay.
Because it almost offers all the same amenities with 12, 13 less million people. So you can actually walk down the street without
that's
elbowing
true.
people, So.
Yeah, you get the Midwestern version of Chicago, which is the nicer, people actually care that you're alive type of version. Yeah. So.
And everybody in Chicago, it's kind of like New Orleans. They're really ambassadors for the city.
Okay.
Like a
makes
bartender
sense.
will be like, oh, well, you got to eat here and you got to try this pizza and you got to go to this dive bar. And so people are really proud of their environment, which I like a city like that. I feel St. Louis is just now getting there.
Okay.
Because St. Louis always kind of had low self-esteem as a city.
Yeah.
But they had more self-esteem as a city than Kansas City, right across the street.
Yeah.
Right across the state. Kansas always kind of played that second fiddle.
Yeah.
It's a slightly smaller market.
Yeah.
So you meet people from Kansas City and they're just like their art scene and their beer scene, really, I would say in some regards, Kansas City kind of blew up with the culture of big barbecue joints, craft beer like Boulevard Wheat. We've all heard of that.
Yeah.
And then, St. Louis caught on. And no, I'd say St. Louis has definitely lapped Kansas City in the brewery scene.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they started off with Budweiser, so that helps. And
Schlafly came around in the mid-'90s. And now there's a brewery on every block.
It turns out that they're fairly popular. So
and fairly profitable.
Right. So
I worked for a guy in Orlando, and he opened just like a real small mom and pop brewery. And the Giant Kettle, it was $600 for the ingredients plus the cost of the water to make a room-sized vat full of beer that he's selling for $7-8 a pint. So. I'm not going to do the math in my head, but
he's doing all right. Yeah.
There's tens of thousands of dollars for $600.
Yeah, he wasn't losing money on that deal.
No, that's why you see a brewery open, then they open another one like 2 years later because they have a money machine right there. So
okay. So we're talking about cities and geography, and you lived in Missouri and you grew up in Missouri and had some issues there, not of your own making, but just from kind of like the circumstance you found yourself in, being adopted into the white family, right? So you're getting through school there, and now you're in Florida, right? So let's walk through kind of what that looked like.
Yeah. So, and to touch on that, I think a lot of my mental toughness comes from I had really strong alpha masculine male role models in my father and older brother. My dad's dean of internal medicine at Barnes Jewish Children, which is like one of the premier hospitals in the world as far as like cancer research and all kinds of stuff. So he's an endocrinologist. And my brother, he's this just badass, like bodybuilding, motorcycle building, racing. Like when he was 14, he bought a 1972 Mercury Cougar XR7.
Okay.
Just like out of a lawn, overgrown, just total heap.
Yeah.
And he bought that when he was 14. The motor was in his bedroom. He rebuilt the motor, rebuilt everything. And by the time he turned 16, like the baddest car on the block, he built himself.
So he planned 2 years ahead of when he had a driver's license. Nice.
And, he's a black belt. And he looked like Baywatch that could, beat you up and beat you in a race. And he built and raced track motorcycles in MotoGP. So I'm like, this guy's like Ultraman, you know? So to have that as an older role model, like we'd be out in the driveway lifting weights and, working on his motorcycles and I'm working on my bicycles. And, I cut lawns and saved enough money to buy a Honda 50 Mini Trail.
Okay.
And I rode that on the street and ran from the cops and rode it through fields and everything. And I learned how to ride on the street on my mom's 70cc Honda scooter.
Okay.
So she would get home from work about 5:30. I get home from school whenever kids get home from school. And I would ride that thing all over the place until she got home. And she came home one day and she was like, "Have you been riding my scooter?" And I'm like, "No." And it's sitting there like tink, 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 like the hot muffler shrinking sound. So I'm like, yeah. And she's like, "Just be careful. I know you take it out."
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. So,
fair enough, yeah. You got out of school and you start working and you got a good bunch of role models, obviously, for your mom and your dad. Tell us what that looked like, your first couple jobs.
Well, my first jobs in high school, I'll touch real quick. The car spa, and that was a high-end detailing shop. And where I lived was kind of a middle-class area adjacent to a really affluent suburb that had no amenities, right? It was just mansions.
Okay.
So no fast food, just maybe like one bank.
Yeah.
And a bunch of private schools and no real commercial anything. So I lived really close to a street called Manchester Road that was the closest boulevard with all the amenities for the wealthy people that lived in just gated, no amenities. Mm-hmm. So at the car spa, Ozzie Smith, Brett Hall, Willie McGee, guys like that, superstars of the 90s, would bring in their Ferraris, their Porsches, their Corvettes. Okay. And I learned how to drive a stick on a John Deere tractor.
They would bring them in though. They wouldn't have. There wasn't somebody that brought them in for them.
Back then, those guys were just. It's Missouri. Like you drive around. It's not New York traffic.
I'm just checking because that if I had that kind of money, maybe I'd have somebody do that for me.
You'd see these guys at McDonald's and Steak and Shake. They were just guys.
Okay.
Because Missouri back then wasn't really a place where. The athletes act like, A-Rod or something.
I guess in the 90s they were making, you make $2 or $3 million a year, you were doing really well. So
And that attitude, I think when these St. Louis teams would interview those guys to acquire them, like you can't be they're like, this is the Midwest. This isn't LA.
A-Rod ain't going to make it here.
You can't have that Manhattan attitude. You got to talk to the fans, sign autographs, be diplomatic.
Yeah.
So, these guys would throw me 50 and I'd pull the Porsche or the Lambo around and
nice.
I didn't get to talk to him. I was never even. I think I grew up kind of just around a lot of celebrities that really assisted me when I ended up moving in Los Angeles. Because the celebrities are everywhere. They're on the hiking trail. They're at Starbucks and all that. So if you walk up all foamy, and I never approached a celebrity that I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah.
So if I see a guy and I'm like I used to hang out at a bar Jose Canseco hang out at.
Yeah. No.
Like, dude, you're trash. He's like the worst dude of all time.
You stay over there, right?
Yeah, I left him alone. Yeah. Oh, he was bigger after he retired because they're not testing a retired guy for steroids. But that's a story for another day. Oh. So, and then I worked across the street at the Hacienda, which was like a nice, very well established from like the 50s or 60s Mexican restaurant.
Okay.
And I'd bus tables there in high school on Friday and Saturday night. Walk home with like 120, 130. High school money?
Yeah, right.
Like,
that's
okay.
Huge.
Yeah. I want a new pair of Jordans or some rims for my bike. I'm like, got it, dude. I'm gonna work 4 shifts and have those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always liked to work and not rely on my parents, because my parents were raised by like really frugal parents. So they weren't handing us anything. Yeah, I'd be like, can I get $20? They'd be like, wash the car and cut the yard. You know?
Right.
I'm like, okay, I'll wash the car today and then I'll cut the yard tomorrow. Can I get the 20 now?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, after college, I'll fully admit, I was not much of an academic. I went to private school my whole career, basically. And I was kind of burnt out on going to school. And I was still an avid reader, and I still wanted to own my own business someday. But yeah, I went to school for a couple years, and I was bartending and playing drums and doing promos on the side. And I'm just like, you know, I don't have like a couple more years of school left in me because I don't know what I want to do. Like, so yeah, I just got an associate's in business. So no master's, no bachelor. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, I was starting to see role models. Some of the most successful guys I knew that weren't attorneys or doctors were literally just kind of dumb guys that worked really hard, and I look at them now and they're worth tens of millions of dollars because they started a business they were interested in. Whether it's
effort's really important.
Motorcycle repair shop or just landscaping with one lawnmower, and now they have 100 trucks and billboards.
Well, we talked to Jason a couple weeks ago, where he just kind of started working on his house, and some guy liked it, and the next thing you know, he's running a roofing company and doing great. And so exactly. You just gotta find out what you'd like to do and go after it. But I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm the opposite of a hater, man. If you went to college for 12 years and have all these degrees, man, that's awesome. But I know lawyers back in Missouri that I grew up with that still drive kind of like a beat up Toyota Corolla because they're paying off $350,000 of WashU law school, and now they sell insurance. And I'm like, wow, that's a tough degree to decide I don't want to do that.
That's rough. If you get out and you owe like 20 grand, okay, that's a mistake. If you get out and you owe a house payment or a house, that's a problem. But
so to each their own. I chose to like kind of lower my overhead and get to work. And from being in bands just literally forever, my first band was 6th grade. That was the first time I ever played on stage with a band.
So you were like 11?
Yeah.
Wow. Holy cow. All right.
And the name of the band was Oasis.
Wait a second.
Not that Oasis. But I'm like, you know what? That's a kick-ass band name. So apparently it was.
Yeah, exactly. Got taken later.
Unlike those brothers, we weren't sitting there just like punching each other in the face. So yeah, I started my marketing career without my knowledge. Just by the time I was in high school, we're playing at venues with like college and beyond bands. Like my high school band was like Pretty Fire. And 25-year-old, 30-year-old dudes in bands were like, hey man, and we would bring a ton of people because in high school back then, not a whole lot of options to choose from to go see a band. So when we played, the whole school would come. So these college bands saw that and they're like, hey, we're from Columbia or we're from K-State or whatever. So when we come in town, we hear you guys pack it. Like we were talking to the club owner.
Open up for us.
So it's like have this high school band there. So it's kind of like, all ages, but 21 to drink. So you get the orange wristband if you're old enough. And man, we were playing with these like regional, way older dude bands. It was like a really cool experience. So I learned, I was designing flyers and going to Kinko's and printing them out and handing them out to people. You walk through the busy parts of town and, like, hey, this band, and we were really promoting the band a level above us. Because they're like, oh, that band's coming? Because, again, the internet was still not really where you went to find entertainment. Because 3 days later when the dial-up loads, you're like, okay. I could have just walked to the venue and asked by now.
Exactly. Just live there.
So, man, I was like kind of always promoting. And I got a job with Red Bull. When, because a promotional model, when they opened up, we were like the 49th market out of 52. I think after us, it was just like Little Rock and Memphis and like smaller towns than St. Louis. So, believe it or not, when Red Bull dropped in Missouri, none of the bars wanted it. So it was already an on-premise. Get it at 7-Eleven and Schnucks, the local grocery store.
Could you buy it at like Walmart and stuff like that?
Probably. Yeah, because they were already nationally distributed. But for on-premise, like they basically wanted me to infiltrate the bars and get it in. So I was in a band at the time called Jive Turkey.
Okay.
It was like a New Orleans funk hip hop band with like a Rhodes keyboard, me on drums, a couple vocalists, kind of singing and rapping.
Okay.
A DJ.
Oh, nice.
You know, sax, trumpet.
Okay.
I mean, we had some talent in that band. So
Okay.
we pulled some weight around town. Like we packed it in too.
Okay.
And the after party was at my house all the time. So we get there about 2, 3 in the morning, just depending on how late the gig went. And there'd be 100 people in front of my loft.
Yeah.
With like bottles of vodka.
Yeah.
Because I had 10 cases of Red Bull.
Right.
So those parties would go to like noon.
Go to just yesterday, right?
But I learned a trick, man. Like bars do it. You know, when you want to clear people out of your party, put on like Barry Manilow, Michael Bolton, or Barbara Streisand, and pick the lights up.
Yeah. Gone
in 60 seconds because that's terrible music. In my estimation.
People are like, wow, look at the time. Yeah.
Like, ooh, okay,
get out of here.
So that was a fun job, man. We were basically just a bunch of athletes, really fit kids, and I convinced the boss to allow us to just load up the Red Bull trucks with sporting equipment that we just had at home. Because like everybody, you know, all the guys all played like hockey, basketball,
everybody's
tennis,
got a basketball,
everything. And the girls played a bunch of sports like golf, tennis, all that stuff. And so we'd load it up and we would just drive around town looking for pickup. There was one point in St. Louis in the late 90s, early 2000s, they did a hockey rink push where a lot of public parks built outdoor hockey rinks for roller skating.
Oh, okay,
like
gotcha. Yeah,
inline hockey.
Yeah.
So you just show up, they're like, okay, 8 dudes, that's enough to play.
Yeah.
And so we play hockey with them, give everybody Red Bull, and take badass social media. So we had one of the best social media programs in the nation, and that actually got me a promotion. So that was cool.
Okay, nice.
And then after that, I moved on to the Riverfront Times to run their promotions department. And actually, I was on their street team concurrently while I worked for Red Bull. And I got an opportunity to interview for my boss's job to run the whole thing because she was trying to move out of town or have a baby or something. It's kind of a party job. So she's like, yeah, little kid, all these late night bars, not really the deal.
Yeah.
And I think she was getting married and the husband was doing well
making
enough.
noise.
She could stay home and raise a kid for a while.
Yeah.
And so I got that. And, you know, when I got the promotion, you know, and people think this is controversial, but I cleaned house. Because I worked with a bunch of...
Well, you knew them.
I mean, nobody was hiding anything from me.
Right.
So we would have typically 2-hour promotions at various venues, restaurants, skateboard, half-pipe events. I mean, name it. You know, this it was the Entertainment Restaurant magazine. So it was all about bands and restaurants.
Yeah.
And these people would show up an hour late to a 2-hour event when I was working alongside them.
Yeah.
And they would just sit there and get hammered, collect 1 email, take 2 photos, and then submit me almost nothing.
Right.
So when I got the job,
like
I fired everybody but
like
2 people.
Yeah.
And they had 15 people on the team.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I replaced them with people. I just think my predecessor just hired all of her party friends.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I promised results in the interview. I know these people can't deliver me.
Right.
So I went and found like people in college for marketing that took it seriously.
Right.
And they were still good looking and fit and attractive, but they were like hungry to do real marketing and they gave me real good input.
Right.
And
they were actually there to do the job. They were there to make a name for themselves before they start their degree and they can put something on their resume.
And it's $30 an hour, so you can get paid $60 in 2002.
Yeah, not bad.
To
just sit in a bar, not so bad.
Yeah, and I'm like,
you have
hey
to do other
guys,
stuff too.
Get hammered when you're done. It's 2 hours.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like,
spend the 60.
And then you're already in for free. So it was a job that provided a lot of access to like backstage areas. So, I mean, I think at that job alone, I met 311, Slightly Stupid, just tons.
That's my nickname.
Famous touring bands. Because like when there's like Lollapalooza or Vans Warped Tour is in town, we're back there with the VIP everything. So I'd work a couple hours.
Yeah.
And then, at the point where I was like the supervisor, I'm getting paid, but I can have some beers. And the people worked in shifts because it's like 100 degrees out at a music festival. I'm not making these people work all day. But like the people that got off early are just hanging out with me in the AC, free beer, air-conditioned tent. So I incentivized the program. We had a lot of restaurants like yourself that would pay us in trade.
Okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
I had a lot of $100 GCs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey man, whoever gets me the most emails this month
Yeah.
gets $100 at like the best sushi place.
Yeah.
So people are collecting emails, and the form my predecessor had was like all these windows of info to fill in. So when somebody's at a rock concert, they're not trying to fill out a credit app, bro.
Right.
Like,
you got 3 minutes
to maybe win a free
maximum.
T-shirt
You
out
got
of 10 million.
3 minutes, right?
So
They're
I
not wasting-
shortened that to phone number, email,
Yeah.
no name, because your name didn't matter.
Right, that's true.
You're just in a CRM database. And
Yeah.
It doesn't have to say. It says, "Hey, RFT fan."
Yeah. Yeah.
And be like,
exactly.
"Hey, Larry. Hey, Greg." It didn't matter.
And people feel
So when
better
people
about
put
not
two
giving out
things-
their not giving out their
Exactly.
name. Yeah.
And I launched an SMS program for them. So long story short, when I took over that program, they had, I don't know, maybe 4,500 emails in their database. And when I left after 2 years, something like 45,000
Okay.
phone
Yeah,
numbers
nice.
and emails.
Yeah.
So I blew that up
It
a little
worked.
bit.
Yeah.
And the photos look good. And just make everybody look good. If you're promoting every restaurant in town,
Yeah.
but your marketing sucks,
That's a problem. Yeah.
because they're paying you marketing dollars. So
All right, so we get done with that, and then we're still in St. Louis at this point, right?
yeah. So I've managed 5, 6, 7, I can't remember, back in the day, marketing tours.
Okay.
So usually they're based out of one of two companies. I worked for a company based out of Burlington, Vermont, which is gorgeous, and Ocean, New Jersey, which is like gorgeous in a New Jersey way. That's not really my favorite part of the country.
Right.
But so these tours, we would do like a week of training there, and they're just whining and dining you. Like you sit looking at videos of like, what's the right thing to do? What's basically HR stuff,
Yeah.
because we all knew our marketing.
Yeah.
But and then you roll out, and it's the beginning of the year. It's usually these things originated in early March. Okay. So some parts of the country it's still cold. So when we're done with the the marketing agency aspect of it, we go to the ad agency, like the client.
Yeah.
So they're a company that would take like Mountain Dew, Red Bull, just national brands. I think one company I did 3 or 4 consecutive PepsiCo, but like what doesn't PepsiCo own, right?
Right. They own everything. They own Frito-Lay. They own all kinds of stuff.
So it was all beverage side.
All right.
But that was a good time. And I guess one key thing, we were in Chicago, and it's like 20 and sleeting. It's just super shitty.
Sounds like Chicago.
Yeah, about to kick off this tour like March 15th or something. And we had a week to get to New Orleans. So I'm like, hey, bro, my guy I was managing, like basically it's like a 2-man crew. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, hey, I live in St. Louis, so they pay you your per diem no matter what. Mm-hmm. I was like, my parents have an extra room.
Yeah.
Actually 2. So let's pocket our hotel per diem and leave Chicago. It's like 10 degrees warmer in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And hang out at my folks' place for a week. Like, I'll show you around. They can, they live behind a bar district, so we just walk out.
Right.
And then we end up in New Orleans as the first location to execute the tour. And it's 93 and humid. So we're there with jeans and hoodies. So like the first stop after the hotel and dropping the trailer was the mall to buy like shorts and flip-flops. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because when you travel the West, like March doesn't really matter. Because like our next markets were Dallas.
Right.
Not Houston, but like Phoenix, Albuquerque, San Diego, Los Angeles. San Francisco was cold.
San Francisco's always cold.
But we stayed in Oakland, so it was like 102 every day. And we're executing events in San Francisco. It's like, man, it's like 77. At the same time, it's 101.
Right, I can see comfortable, and it's miserable here. Yeah.
Boy, Oakland is crazy, man. That's like 2.5 million. It's like the size of Orlando, but all hood. Like,
really? The whole thing?
Yeah. Like there's mountains. There's a mountain ridge right there.
Yeah.
So you can see like, oh, okay, that's probably where Beast Mode lives. And like all the A's and the Raiders when they had them.
Because Berkeley's just north of Oakland, right?
I think and once you cross the line and go up in the hills, it's about elevation in California.
Okay.
So the higher you live, the better the view, the
more
nicer
money you
the
have.
home.
Okay.
So the commoners down there, the rich people can see, I go to parties in LA where you're on a balcony and it's at the same height of like downtown LA's tallest building.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then you can see the ocean over there.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I've walked into parties where I'm like, oh, this is a really nice ranch home.
Yeah.
Because you pull up, circle driveway in the front, went down 4 stories on the back, each with its own terrace. And I'm
wow.
Like, who lives there? Batman? I'm like, this is... Yeah, saw some incredible homes out there.
All right. So,
all right.
So you're still in St. Louis.
Yeah. I did one last tour.
Yep.
And I actually sold all my stuff and put a couple things in my parents' basement. And I'm like, I'm moving after this tour. So I did one more West Coast tour because I didn't want to move east. Like St. Louis is kind of east, you know what I mean? Philadelphia, St. Louis, kind of all the same bad weather and all that. I wanted to get rid of snow shovels and things like that. So I'm like, sure, it's probably Vegas, San Diego, or LA. Yeah. And after that tour, by that time, I had about 20 plus musician friends that I've played with before, either in their band or toured with or whatever, living in Los Angeles at the time. So I'm like, well, then that's the no-brainer. Like while I was on tour, 5, 6 more of them moved. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I have built-in boys I've known for like 20 years from my hometown, living out there. Yeah. So yeah, no brainer. So I moved out there, and I had always wanted to sell cars, and I knew LA was like the #1 car market. Yeah. Almost on the planet. Yeah. Like half the new cars in the country are sold in California. Okay. Because 85% of people lease. So I'm like, gotcha. Well, if I can't get it done there, I mean, there's buyers on the scene. Yeah. Like somebody walks in, my lease is up in 2 weeks. Yeah, they're buying a car. Tires. Yeah, right.
They're getting a car.
Yeah. So that was cool. So I tried a couple dealerships and I did a little research, and I'm like, all right, this Vista Ford in Woodland Hills. It's about 8 miles from my house, and that's about as good as it gets in Los Angeles. Yeah. I mean, traffic's gonna suck.
Hour. Right. Yeah.
So I waited specifically till the end of the month to go in where I could see the sales board. Because I had like a tactic I just kind of came up with. So, I asked to see the GM, and the guy's like, well, he's busy. And I'm like, well, you know what? I typically only buy cars from the manager. I don't back and forth. Yeah. So I came in disguised as a car buyer. Yeah. And I'm in his office, and I'm like, by the way, I just moved here. I've got some money in the bank to survive a minute, but, I've got marketing experience, not like a ton of sales experience. Although I did, and you know what? Well, you know what? I'm not going to talk about every job I've ever had. Yeah, okay. So anyways, and I'm like, all right, man, it's the 28th. I see a guy with 40. I see a guy with 35. Yeah. I see a lot of guys in the 20s. Yeah. What's up with the bottom feeders? Yeah. Like, you got a guy with 4, 3, and 3. Yeah. So he's like, well, we don't hire anybody without experience. I'm like, well, why don't you fire one of the 3s? Yeah. And if I sell 3 cars my first month,
just fire me too. Yeah. Right. You won't have to fire me. I'll just leave.
And the guy was like, kid, I've been in this business 35 years. I've never heard anybody walk in my office with stones like that. You got it.
All right. So there you go. Nice.
I'm like, oh, shit, that worked. So,
awesome.
And, first month, I think I got like 12.
Okay.
And I think my best month over there was like 30 something. There were 2 old guys that had worked there since it opened in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Those guys could sleep for a week and sell 5 cars from referrals. They were selling cars to people's grandkids that didn't have kids when they sold the first.
They're selling somebody their 7th car in 20 years.
Yeah, so those were always
the 40s.
They're battling for first, and then it was like everybody else.
Okay.
So if you could get 30 out of that shop when those guys have 40, you are grinding. I'd be on the golf course and I'd be like, "Hey, your customer's here." I'm like,
"Gotta go."
So I was like, "Hey, put him on the phone." Yeah. I was like, hey, man, you've been in 5 times. Yeah. I'm on hole 5. Yeah. So, I will put my clubs up now and be there in 30 minutes if we're buying today. Yeah. But if we're
looking,
yeah,
look all you want. Yeah.
Because I'll split a deal if you're just, maybe. But if it's a whole deal on the right car, and I know that's going to put $2,500 in my pocket, I'll play golf at a better course next time with this car sale. So I'm not worried about it.
All right.
So selling cars was fun, but in California, nothing's ever closed ever because it's like the opposite of the Bible Belt. Okay. Like people aren't just Christian where things are closed on Sunday. Yeah. They're Muslim and Jewish and Buddhist. Yeah. And, so, I mean, you'll sell cars on Sunday. Yeah. And every day. So sometimes I'd work 7, 8, 9, 10 days in a row with 1 day off. And And then you get that call on your day off. Like,
Yeah.
hey, that guy is here. And I'm like, man, So you get to a point where I was killing it,
Quality
but
of
there's
life
no
issue.
amount of money
Yeah.
where I'm killing myself for. And that's what I was completely burnt out. So I got a job offer from Miller Brewing Company.
Okay.
And man, that was really one of the coolest jobs I've ever had. So I was the on-premise sales and marketing manager for Hollywood, Santa Monica, and Malibu.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Which, well, yeah, there was a new boss, and LA's broken up into a lot of areas, right? And he's like, you know what? I like your musician and your Red Bull and your promotions. Like, you've done fun things that go in the party areas. So I was looking for someone specifically to handle the Hollywood, like a guy that can like party, kind of rub elbows with everybody, and gets it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know how to throw a party and entertain clients.
Okay.
So I took my roommate Paul, who sidebar, this guy, I'm looking for a roommate on Craigslist, and I call this guy, and he was like just really cool on the phone, and sounded like not 100. So I'm like, cool, this guy sounds like my age, but smart, and if he's successful enough to rent me out, a room in his house, that's his rent was starting to get dumb. I was getting rid of my $2,500 a month 2-bedroom apartment 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, right. That's more than I got right now.
Yeah.
So I go over there, and man, this guy's got like 6 cars, modest house, but big driveway around it and everything. He's got a new Lotus, a new BMW M5, and he's got a smart car, which those are stupid, but I'll double back to why that's relevant. And 3 racing Miatas that were like, and a trailer to take his Miatas to the track. And
numbers and stuff. And,
no taillights, not street legal at all.
Okay.
Fired up, like, so like a weed eater on steroids. So I get to talking to this guy. Well, he's the founder of the company Smart Wax and Chemical Guys.
Oh.
Which are very high-end car care products. So at that point, it was founded in 97. So I guess at that point, he was like already 10 years in. Had to be worth $10-20 million at that point.
Oh, geez.
And
he's renting out a room in his house?
Yeah.
All right.
So what are the odds, right? Like we're both kind of car guys, So, and he just had the keys hanging there.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, man, take anything you want, whenever you want, except the racing Miatas.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not drinking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd run to the grocery store in a Lotus, pick up a couple items, or take a girl out in the M5, and I'm like, I mean, I had a Mustang. It was a nice car.
Yeah.
But
Lotus is still little better.
Oh, we'd be out driving around. We get pulled over by girls like, where are you going? Like, we just want to hang out with guys that aren't 100 that drive a car like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So he was a cool guy. We kind of ended up having a falling out. So, well, yeah, he kind of crept in on a girl I was talking to.
Yeah.
So then I took his ex-girlfriend of 7 years out for a couple nice dinners. And, we don't talk. But, man, I appreciate the experience because living with him for a couple years. Yeah. Dude, he was one of the most driven, motivated people I've ever seen, and I had ambitions to open a business someday. Yeah. So just hanging out with that dude every day for like 2 years.
Learn a little.
Oh man, I mean, you couldn't get that out of a book. No. Like he was freaking genius. Cool. We had a chemical engineering degree, so he was working for some company, and he had a passion for cars. And he's like, I hate my job. I bet I can engineer the best car care products.
All right.
And he does.
And it turns out he did.
Now he's on Amazon and Walmart. I mean, it used to be $50 for a bottle of his wax.
$50.
Yeah. Now it's 10, and it's on Amazon.
Well.
So.
Yeah.
If he's not a billionaire yet, he's close.
On the way. Okay.
Anybody that's into keeping their car spotless, every car dealership in the world probably has his products. Okay. And every detail shop. So it's.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So cool guy.
All right, so you're working for Miller.
Yeah, so I'm working for Miller, and the first thing I do is Paul, the aforementioned roommate, and I put an ad on Craigslist. I wanted to hire a whole new promotional team of Miller Light Girls. Okay. So put an ad out like, hey, models, actresses, $50 an hour, like come to one of my accounts, some bar on Sunset or something like that. Yeah. And like 300 girls showed up to this bar.
Jesus.
So we just had them like sectioned off, and just like, all right, line up.
Yeah, right. No, maybe, yes, no. Good Lord.
So yeah, it's just Paul and I.
Yeah.
And like our roommate, I can't remember his name. He's kind of a quiet guy.
All right.
He's like studying psychology or something.
Yeah.
And we were the panel. So like just sitting there drinking beer and like we're the panel. I'm like, all right, I need 50.
Yeah.
And 300 showed up.
Yeah.
So
all right.
it turned away some talent, but yeah, that job was super cool for the access, right? Because
that's what I was
beer
gonna say.
sponsors everything.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So you're downtown LA too, and plus Hollywood, plus so you got like
not downtown,
Lakers,
just,
Dodgers.
Miller had seats for everything, right?
Okay.
They have the luxury box at Staples. They're the primary sponsor of Staples Center.
Oh, are they? Okay.
So I went to I can't even count how many Lakers games I went to, playoffs, championships.
In the box.
In the box.
Nice.
Because I'm entertaining clients like 5-6 nights a week. Mm-hmm. So beach volleyball, Dodgers games.
So who's a client? Is it like a
bar
club?
owner.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. All right.
Well, because we're greasing each other's wheels, right?
Yeah,
Kind
sure.
of probably how the pharmaceutical industry used to work.
Yeah,
Till they
sure.
got popped for opioid.
Right.
Pushing.
Right. But you're like, hey, I got 2 taps in your place. What does it take to get me 4? And
Yeah,
that type of thing.
I had a pretty simple approach. I mean, it's beer. I'd be like, what's the biggest dud you have on draft?
Yeah.
They're like, blank. And I'm like, cool. Well, we're releasing Peroni and Leinenkugel Sunset Wheat.
Yeah.
And I feel those are beers that will do really well
Yeah.
in this market and specifically your bar.
Yeah. So give me a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, drop your, just like the car sales thing,
Yeah.
man. Drop the last 2, and if these suck, then, you can have them back.
Yeah.
And I'll give you some T-shirts and some Lakers tickets.
Right. And
they'll
send
be
over the
like-
light girls for the opening for. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you make people money, you become good friends.
Yeah.
So when you put profitable beers that outsell crappy ones, because I just think my competition on the Anheuser-Busch side at the time was really lax.
Okay.
Because they're like, we're Anheuser-Busch. Like, it sells itself. And I don't believe anything sells itself, so I'm going to go push it hard.
There are things that will sell itself, but they can always be sold in a new and creative and different way to other people. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like taking out Stella taps for Peroni.
Oh, wow.
Because the Bud
Okay.
people were sleeping.
Okay.
So they're like, yeah, I haven't heard from the Bud guy in like 6 weeks. So just distributor comes by and drops it off. But and it doesn't sell well.
Yeah.
So let's try Peroni, like a more genuine Italian beer. Stella's kind of fake.
Yeah.
I don't care for it.
Hey, we carry that here, so.
I mean, Stella's like totally premium and not at all like not skunky Heineken that's disgusting.
No, we have lots of beer here. That's the base beer. So I don't mind to sell it myself. So we have a different opinion on that. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, so you're schmoozing bar owners and club owners and all this stuff in LA and taking them to Lakers games, and this doesn't sound like a bad existence.
No, dude, I did that for 2 years and it was just a blast.
Yeah.
But it was too much fun and too much no free time. Everything was in a bar. Like you can actually too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
Like when you're out 6-7 nights a week, just partying and entertaining people, and you have a day job to do.
Yeah.
And you miss all your friends' birthdays and anniversaries, just like anything that matters for yourself because you're at work.
Okay. Oh, so like you did you set the schedule, or I guess you're out there grinding, so you want to make sure that you're out there taking care of everybody,
and you can get addicted to the fun. You know, I've always enjoyed going out and doing all the things they paid me to do and paid for me to do free. I mean, I was literally, I don't know, they're paying me maybe 75, 80, but I was living a lifestyle like probably making $3 million a year in LA.
Yeah.
Well, valet parking, like everything was a write-off.
Yeah.
I have my Miller Platinum card, and it's my job to show these guys a good time.
Yeah.
Like beer spends money to, grease wheels.
Yeah, okay.
Because they know if I can get 30 kegs of Miller Lite selling that month, like that's more than that Lakers ticket that they already own.
They already wrote off, and they were going to go anyway.
Yeah, we didn't buy tickets. My boss just was like, how many do you need? I mean, he had like a drawer full,
Yeah, gotcha.
That's his job. Grease the wheels.
Yeah. All right, so 2 years there.
And then I actually went back to selling cars at Vista Ford.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to like stop drinking for a while.
Yeah.
And like, be a professional.
Yeah.
and
have like, time to sleep. And,
And about that time, 08, 09 rolled around and nobody could qualify for a loan.
Right.
Everybody was 3 months back on their mortgage.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right. So I moved back to Missouri.
Okay.
to regroup because Missouri's cheap. I've got kind of a set of fallback skills.
Yeah.
So I went back to Missouri. I was bartending and playing in a band again. And, cover bands, $500 a wedding, whatever.
Yeah.
And St. Louis is relatively very cheap.
Yeah.
I moved into a buddy's house who just got divorced, so I gave him like $500 a month.
Yeah.
For a room.
Yeah.
And I've known him since grade school.
Yeah,
so
and you can use the kitchen as long as you clean up after yourself, right?
Easy stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So, fast forward, yada, yada. I'm playing drums, bartending, and I met my wife, Felicia, at Sasha's Wine Bar on DeMun, which anybody from St. Louis, you know where that is. Like, awesome place. It's like the preeminent wine bar in the city.
Okay, nice.
And so, making bank there.
Yeah.
But, you're 30-something. I'm like, all right, man. And I'm not bashing any bartenders. It's just, for me, I felt like I was selling my potential short of what I can really accomplish. I just didn't want to wake up and be a 55-year-old bartender and drummer in a band and be like, wow, I've got no 401k.
Yeah.
I don't have health insurance. Like, I'm just kind of dicking around and I need to use more of my potential.
Yep.
So Felicia and I started dating and, we kind of moved in together and got engaged really fast because she was just an incredible person and super hardworking, super dedicated to what she does.
Yep.
And it was motivation like, well, you know what? A gal where she is in her career deserves better than rudderless ship Chris that used to kill it.
Okay.
So, let's kill it again.
Yeah.
So I got a horrible job with great pay.
Okay.
At a label company as a sales manager for the Midwest. And, I didn't know if I'd like it or not, but it got me kind of out of the bars.
Okay.
And matched her 9 to 5.
Okay. Yep.
So now we could hang out and then she could come to my shows.
Yeah.
Instead of day and night, I'm always gone and, so that job was just terrible. They were 20 years of technology behind all of our competitors.
Oh, all right.
So I'm like, all right. So I told my wife after I was there a week, I'm like, they're paying me, but this isn't going. I can't even sell their shit because all the people I contact, they're like, well, yeah, we've looked at your company before and you're so dated. We have that stuff already. We're trying to move into the future.
Right.
And I can tell them well, yeah, 2 years from now, we're going to be
there with you.
2 years from now.
We're going to be awesome. Right.
2 years from now, your new equipment will be 2 years old that you bought from our competitor.
Right, exactly.
Because they're ahead of the curve.
And
So I told my wife, I'm like, hey, babe, you know what? I've got a lot of skills. I've been trained by every company. Yeah. I could open my own company.
All right.
So I did. It was online retail, and it did very well.
Okay.
And then we decided, when the kid's out of high school, we're going to move to Florida. So...
Okay, so talk. How'd you pick Florida?
We kind of shortlisted a bunch of not cold cities. Mm-hmm. So I think the coldest city on the list was Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
We got some friends there, and Charlotte's cool. If you like to do stuff, Yeah. It's got the food, it's got the drink, it's got the bands, it's got a couple pro teams. Charlotte's fun.
Yeah.
And then the college thing, if you're into that.
Yeah.
Raleigh-Durham's an hour or something. There's a lot to do.
Yep.
And you want beach, mountains, pick one.
Right. So, they're not that far away. Yeah.
But ultimately, she previously lived in Tampa and Orlando. Okay. And our first vacation we ever took was in Orlando. And I really fell in love with Orlando. Okay. So we're like, you know what? We're not going to move to Vegas. 3, 2, 1, divorce. Right. Probably leads the league in divorce for a reason.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But so we're just like, you know what? We can't really go wrong with moving to Central Florida because then on the weekends we can drive over to Tampa. Yeah. We can drive over to not Daytona.
To Cocoa or something.
Just figure out where we really want to be. And we're staying in Airbnb in Kissimmee for 30 days. And I'm like, okay, Kissimmee's trash. Oh. But the closest beach was 192. And I had never been to Melbourne. We just took that here because it dead ended at the beach.
Oh, right by here. And then, okay.
So nice. Take Kissimmee, 192. It was the shortest trip. And we're like, wow, this is a cool little town. Yeah. And, after the pandemic and all that, our rent in Orlando doubled in 2 years. Doubled. Ooh. It's $1,800 to almost $4,000 or something. It's just ridiculous. Wow. And I'm looking at rent, and I'm like, hey, babe, you know, the rent in Melbourne is actually it's like about what we moved to Orlando at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And we're at the beach.
Yeah, and she negotiated being remote.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm kind of remote myself anyways, so here we are.
Nice.
And kind of no looking back. Every time we travel on the weekends, you know, we'll go to Jupiter, we'll go here, we'll go there. You know, always kind of mind open, like, hey, is there a better part of Florida we're suited for? And we just keep coming back to Melbourne. I'm like, not yet.
Yeah.
So
No,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
I love it here.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan myself, and we've talked about that. And we talked to all our guests about how much they love it here, and it's just a great place to be, and weather's good, and the beach is right there. It's just hard to beat. So
Yeah, and if the traffic ever gets ridiculous, I'll move 10 miles south where there's not much traffic on the US 1.
no,
You know what I mean?
oh yeah, no, it gets a little sparse down that way. Yeah, so down Palm Bay, Malabar way.
All right, well, we've gone really long. So
Okay, all right.
made Steve talk to me for almost an hour.
Oh, really?
54 minutes.
Holy shit! All right.
Well, we're friends. We talk for hours all the time anyway.
I'm learning a lot of stuff here. This is good. What else do you want to talk about? Are we good?
That's about
Chris.
it. I mean, you know, everybody knows what I do. Links in the description. Digital marketing.
Yeah.
If your website's 5-10 years old, equate that to like if you had a flip phone that old, would you be pleased with it? You might need a new one. So give me a call.
Chris is really good at that stuff. So
Yeah.
he's working on a bunch of people's stuff right now, and so call him up and get on his agenda so he can come and help you out, because he's really good at that stuff. Well, thanks for talking to us and kind of introducing yourself, and
right on.
We'll try and get you a little more in front of the camera once in a while. I'm still a little surprised that I'm doing all the talking on these things, because I know you, so.
You know, they found the gene for shyness.
Yeah.
They'd have found it years earlier, but it was kind of hiding behind some other genes. You know?
No, thanks. It's great, and we'll talk to everybody soon. So we got somebody coming up here. We're gonna be talking to later today, and that'll be coming up here pretty soon. So thanks for sharing your story. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Steve.
Yeah, take it easy, man. Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Bye.